Farmers are worried about a
stink bug invasion.
The invasive species is threatening crops.
Lock your doors and close your windows.
And stink bugs are back.
They're back, those pesky stink bugs.
Ornamental plants are plants that are grown and used not for food purposes, but for their aesthetic value usually, or other environmental benefits that they provide. When we have an issue like an invasive species like this stink bug that's attacking and damaging so many crops, the best way to figure out what needs to be done and what needs to be learned about them is to work with the growers. And we interact with them, they tell us what their needs are, they have great ideas on ways to manage the pest or aspects about it. In a nursery production situation, the stink bugs aren't overwintering here. They are leaving the nurseries to overwinter somewhere else. In the spring, they migrate in and start infesting the plants. The things about an ornamental nursery that differ from other types of agricultural systems is they are very diverse in the plant material that are here. And what we've noticed is that there is definitely a preference for some species, and even within a species for cultivars over other cultivars. And they also tend to do what we are calling resource tracking. So if a plant has fruit on it, they might feed on that plant. So it moves according to the resource that's on the plant. As far as the overall impact on the leaves, they cause a little discoloration or spotting. On the fruit, they cause it to become discolored and even deformed. And then on the trunks of the trees, they can gather in large numbers, and they actually are sucking on the phloem sap. And we're afraid they will vector secondary pathogens and infect the trees that way. And the other potential is that the feeding stresses the tree, and when trees are stressed, that predisposes them to other potential pests, which can actually kill the trees. We've been keeping a very close eye on the damage that's caused to our plants, and we do see some damage, but the levels of damage to this point has not been to the level where the growers are having to apply control measures or to the level where we're getting any economic loss due to the stink bug feeding. Our major concern are when we have the large numbers feeding on the trunks of the trees, and this tends to happen more so in the fall months, in September.
I'm a master's student at the University of Maryland under Dr. Michael Raup, and I'm involved in the BMSB project looking at their host use of woody ornamental plants. So thus far we've been able to identify several plants that have been heavily used by brown marmorated stink bug over the last 2 years. They tend to like certain species of cherry and dogwood over others, and also London plane tree has been heavily used by brown marmorated stink bugs. And then from that information, we hope to figure out how to predict patterns of this use and to be able to make recommendations on what to plant, what not to plant, to reduce BMSB's impact. In a nursery type situation, we can now tell growers that there are certain plants that they might not want to put on the edges of their nurseries that border agricultural crops or wood edges, and those would be the plants that are more preferred by the stink bug. In general, conifers tend to be less preferred than some of our deciduous hosts, so they may want to, when they're planting, keep that in mind. In landscapes, our information will help designers know which plants to put in, because you want to now design landscapes that are going to be less likely to attract and support stink bugs. So with our plant host information, we can make those recommendations. The other aspect from a management perspective relates to monitoring. So if we know which plants are preferred and which plants aren't preferred, we can make recommendations as to where monitoring efforts should be focused and which plants should be being kept a close eye on.